Well, this depends upon what is the nature of the soul. So there's one Spanish mystic named Miguel de Unamuno. He once said about science that to study something, it has to kill it. It kills something, and then it starts studying it and making so many conclusions based upon discovery. But what is obvious is that the most essential aspect of what was animating, illuminating that form is no longer there. So you're studying a dead body in a laboratory. So often, Srila Guru Maharaj, when he would be fielding different questions, we're asking so many questions, the group of devotees, sometimes he would caution us by saying, we're not studying a dead body in a laboratory, but we're studying something that is living and growing and developing. Right? Like the children, we see with them the growth is a little more obvious because they're growing at such a rapid rate. So we see in a short period of time that we see visibly observable differences. So when you talk about self-realization, soul realization, if the soul, by its nature, is something that's living and growing and developing, it's something dynamic, then the implication would be that self-realization is also like that. So we discussed yesterday, or last time, something about subjective, super subjective, and the super subjective. Subjective means, in this context, the soul element, Atma. And Atma is a heading. Atma means Atma and Paramatma. When we talk about Atma, it means Atma and Paramatma. So the subjective world, the subjective aspect, the observer, Upadrashtanumantacha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti Chapyukto Dehesman Purusha Pura. You can say Jiva is an observer of this world, Paramatman is an observer of Jiva. So, we hear in the early part of the Gita, second chapter, in Atmagyan, the famous sloka, Dehinosmen yata dehe komaram yovanam jara, tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatra namuhyati. I find it interesting. Krishna is giving a very simple example. Right? He's Krishna. If he wanted to give some very complicated, sophisticated example, he can do that. He's Krishna. By his expansion as Paramatma, situated in the heart of every living being. So we could make a case that if he's going to give an example, it's a good one, right? Sometimes we think, well, what should you say to people in the beginning to try and give them the right idea or the right concept? Well, let's ask Krishna. What would you say? He said, well, I've said in Bhagavad Gita, Dehinosmen yata dehe komaram yovanam jara. It's one of the examples he gives there, talking about these different stages of development of the body. But what is constant throughout, the atomic constant, is the soul. I was saying, whether in the embryo, in a little baby, a toddler, a child, a teenager, a young adult, all these different bodies, per se, are there. But what is constant? Here, what is the atomic constant? Atma, Jivatma. And then he says, Tata dehantra prapti dhiras tatra namuyati. After one, and when the soul gives up this body, he'll acquire another one that will be based upon the kind of culture of the last one. As we were witnessing all these flying insects recently, and it reminds me of, in one place, Srila Prabhupada saying that ants, before dying, they desire flight. They want to fly. So in their next birth, they become either flying ant or a fly or something. It's similar. And we saw them the other night. We also heard that example from Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj as well, that there are some living entities, their lifespan is an hour. They're born, they go through the whole life cycle in an hour, a few hours, or a very short period of time. All that one night, the other night, all of those, and now they're gone. And they're just lying, their bodies are lying in different places. Vasamsi janani yata vihaya navani granati parom. Krishna, another example in Gita, says he compares the body to a garment. Like I noticed on my shirt today, like threads coming undone. And then I thought, oh, I've had this shirt for a couple of years now. Then a button will fall off, something. It's like that. As you get older, buttons start falling off, threads start coming undone. So once a friend of mine, he was so impressed with Srila Guru Maharaj's examples, analogies. He thought, if Srila Sridhar Maharaj will describe the Atmagyan, and by that we mean more like the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he was thinking, Guru Maharaj's capacity, conceptual capacity is so great, this will be fantastic. So he told me, you go and inquire from Guru Maharaj, he'll answer all these questions, and then we'll publish that. Jai Srila Bhakti Vimalabhadut Maharaj Ki Jai. He thought, in that way, our preaching success will be guaranteed. So I went to Srila Guru Maharaj with this proposal, and he did speak something about the second chapter and these different slokas. But what sticks out in my mind and remembrance is his saying that it is a question of faith. Because there are so many books available in the marketplace, say, documenting reincarnation. 100 stories that verify, and someone says, I remember in my former life, or someone woke up in England and suddenly they're speaking perfect French, and many different types of stories are there. But Guru Maharaj, he told this, he said, it's a question of faith. He said, if someone has faith, then hearing a simple example, like Krishna is giving in Bhagavad Gita, the Dehinosman sloka, Vasamsi Janani Yatavihaya, and the other slokas there, they'll accept this. They'll find it enlightening, illuminating. And he said, whereas if they don't have faith, You can present a mountain of evidence, and they won't believe it. It won't be enough for them. But if they have faith, you have a simple example, like Krishna giving, hearing that, there'll be some, it will register sympathetically in the heart. So, we begin with a general idea of what the self is, what the soul is. That's also in Bhagavad Gita. Indriyani pranyahur, indriyebhya param manaha, manasastu parabudhe, yo budhe paratastu sa. Krishna showing in a hop, skip, and a jump to go from a mundane world into the beginning of the spiritual world. Indriyani pranyahur, indriyebhya param manaha. You have senses. You can see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and feel. You think this ability to perform these varieties of sensual activities, demonstrates that the senses are superior to the objects of the senses. So the sense which can smell is superior to the object that's being smelled. What can see, etc. Manasastu parabu, and then he's saying, Indriyani pranahur, indriyebhya param manaha. But superior to the senses is the mind. Why? Because it's the mind that endows us with sensual capacity. Right? Like there's the common saying, or that are synonymous. Losing your mind and have you lost your senses? Have you lost your mind? Have you lost your senses? Same thing, because the mind is the seat of sense experience. So, like when we're anesthetized, right, we're not feeling. Right? Right. So when we're put into a state of unconsciousness, we don't mind. I remember once having an operation in the hospital, and they gave me different types of drugs, and the drugs are just starting to take their effect, and they talk to you for a while to see how you're doing. And I was a young devotee at the time, so I thought I have to preach at every opportunity. So I'm preaching to them, and they're wheeling me into the room. Oh yeah, And then it reached the point where I couldn't tell, are they asking me questions, or it's just some people in my mind who are asking me questions, or nobody, am I actually speaking or not? It was getting heavier and heavier and heavier until the next thing I heard was the doctor going, they're all looking over, it's local anesthesia. The doctor going, hammer, chisel, and I'm going, hammer, chisel, and he put that on my head, and he's going, but at the time, I have a big smile on my hammer, chisel, ha ha. Hammer away. The last time I went to the hospital was in Marin County, which is kind of like this California wonderland. And it's like going to a 4-star hotel, and they treat you very nice. It seems like you're the only person in the hospital. You don't even see other people, and they wheeled me into the room, and then they started giving me that anesthesia. But this is it's like very nice aroma, this is like new age anesthesia. really like sweet, tasty, smelling really nice, like as good or as the best flowers. I'm smelling this, and they're talking to me to see also if it's taking effect. And then they also have a poster of, and on the ceiling there's this beautiful nature scene. And I made some jokes about it. And I said, I don't feel the anesthesia taking effect. I'm a little worried. And they're saying, oh, okay, just, And then the next thing I noticed, because I made a joke about the poster was gone. And I said, I was just kidding. You can leave the poster, because I made some joke about it. I said, you can put the poster back. It was only a joke. But it was 4 hours later. And I was in a different room. That's why there was no poster. And then this nurse, she comes over and says, I want you to take this pill and this cracker. And then she sat down, and then she was eating a cracker. And I said, you can have a cracker, but you can't have a pill. And she was like, oh, this is going to be a good one. And then there was this machine with, blood pressure, all these different things. And I said, I'd like to see it. And she said, okay. And she turned it around so I could see all the digital readout. And she said, you let me know if something goes wrong. So anyway, I could understand. What happened in those 4 hours? Because my mind, I had been anesthetized to the point where no seeing, hearing, tasting, smell, everything was turned off. Right? So the mind is the seat of sense experience. And according to Guru Maharaj, therefore, it's also really the seat of karma. It's not so much what we do in this world, it's what's going on in that's where the real culpability is traced. Just like in the criminal justice system, or the justice system. They have to determine criminal intent. Right? What was the person's intentions? Right? So the mind, manasastu parabudhe, superior to the mind, buddhi, intelligence, the discriminating factor. Because the mind, we're told, sankalpa, vikalpa, accepting and rejecting, it's doing this indiscriminately. So the intelligence is there to say, oh, maybe this isn't good for you. Or, yes, this is something you should definitely pursue. But is that dharma buddhi? Intelligence under the influence of sadhu, shastra, guru, and Vaishnava? Or is it something else? Someone can be extremely intelligent and not be Krishna conscious. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarvai gunais tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna mano ratenasato davato bahi. It's in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, saying that someone may appear to be enriched with so many good qualities, but if they're not connected to reality, and by implication, reality means Krishna conception. Right? Then it says, Harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena sato davato bahi. There's nothing substantial there. It says manorata. This is just floating on the chariot of the mind. That's another Upanishadic example we see, where we're told that the Atma is like the charioteer, And the senses are like 5 horses. The mind and intelligence is supposed to be the reins to guide the senses. But without the infusion, Dharma Buddhi from Sadhu Shastra Guru Vaishnava, what sort of direction will there be? Manasastu prabhute yo budhe paratastu sa. And above that is the soul plane. Doesn't go into details about Atma, this, that, and the other thing, showing sense objects, senses, mind, intelligence. Soul is finer still. The self is finer still. So that self is a stagnant thing or a dynamic thing that's capable of growth and development. Guru Maharaj will point out, Jiva, the Jiva Shakti, possesses adaptability. What does that adaptability mean? Being tatastha, marginal potency. And what does that mean? That Guru Maharaj described, the in-carrying devotional current going towards the central conception of the infinite, right? Vaikuntha, and by extension, the Aprakrita Leela of Krishna, Goloka. And the out-carrying current that's going away from that. Bayam datiya binibeshi tatshat, ishadape tasya viparyayo smriti, in forgetfulness of our spiritual identity, flowing away, and the out-carrying current. Saying, but where these two cross, their juncture, said it's a peculiar, practically inconceivable position to understand the jiva tattva, tatastha shakti. Mahaprabhu said, Krishnara tatastha shakti. When Sanatan says, Kami kene amo ijari tapitroy, ihan nahi jani kamone hitohoy. Who am I? Why am I suffering? And if I don't know this, how can I do what's good for me? Because I'll be dedicating all my energy to a diluted concept of self, something that's not actually me. Even the American transcendentalist, Emerson, one of his famous quotes, one of the fathers of rugged individualism, right? One of his famous quotes is, imitation is suicide. What does that mean? To be something you're not. That's what it means. That is a way of killing yourself. It doesn't give yourself chance to grow or develop because you're imitating something that you're not, something that you're not meant to be. What are we meant to be? Krishnara tatastha shakti beda bed prakash. Mahaprabhu was saying, there's the antaranga shakti, the swarup shakti, the internal energy of Krishna. Then there's the Maya Shakti. You can have a Maya Shakti influenced identity or a Swarup Shakti influenced identity. But he's saying Krishna, Tatastha Shakti, Beda Bed Prakash. They're like Krishna, but different. Or as they say, same, but different. Jivas are same, but different. Right? Magnitude. Infinite and finite. So Guru Maharaj talks sometimes about the atomic constant, that means jiva, needs to connect with the infinite constant, means Krishna. Right? Finite, infinite. Atomic, and what's in the other direction? What's the opposite of atomic? Professor. Yes, but I'm saying a word that's like parallel. I know, finite, infinite, atomic. Huh? I can't hear you. No, I'm looking for a word like material, spiritual, finite, infinite, atomic. What's the word that would be the parallel for some? Yeah, but there would be non-eternal, eternal. I'm looking for words that mirror each other. Finite, infinite. relative, absolute. Right? Mundane, spiritual. Mundane, supramundane. So atomic. Anyway, we get the idea. In Sanskrit they solved this problem. Anor, aniyan, mahato, mahayan, atmasya jantor nihito guhayam. That says, there's Anu, like Anu Krishna. Anu Krishna, Anu, and Mahan means the great. Atma, Mahatma. So you have something like that. We have Paramatma. It's a little more interesting, actually. Bhagavan. So, Mamevang Sajiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. So, there's some similarity to Krishna. So Krishna is living, growing, developing, dynamic, Nitya Navana Vayamana, Navayovana, Navayovanam cha. Always newer, always fresher. That's what sometimes Guru Maharaj would say, Shama Sundar means eternally green, evergreen. Because we always say, no, Shama Sundar means blue or dark. But Guru Maharaj said, Shama Sundar means evergreen. Krishna is evergreen. So it doesn't mean to think like the green color, but evergreens and just always. When we heard about the evergreen tree, we said, oh, some like are green and then they go brown, but these are always eternally green. They're forever green. They're evergreen. So Krishna, like that. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santaksadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti yang shama sundaram achinta guna swarupam govinda maripurisham tamaham vijayam. Achintya guna swarup. His swarup has achintya gunas, inconceivable qualities. And the jivas are his angsa. So, when it comes to self-realization, self-actualization, we would hear the aphorism, ahang brahmasmi. Prabhupada, he said this many, many times, but he would also say, and he'd say, but will you be happy going, ahang brahmasmi, ahang brahmasmi, ahang brahmasmi. I'm spirit, I am spirit, I am spirit, I am that spirit, I am that. It's actually a mantram of the Mayavadis. Like tattvamasmi, ahang, they're thinking, that spirit that's pervading everything, I'm that. Thinking Mahan, that I'm so great. Not Anu, that they're thinking like humanists. No, you're so great. So, what is that self? Just generic, off-the-shelf spirit? Right? Or the development of self as in seva mayoyam loka, where anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyana anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti rutama. Srila Guru Maharaj says, the layers, the self is covered by layers of karma and jnana, right? And acquired prejudice, ahankar, all these things. But coming in connection with Krishna and Krishna, Krishna and his devotees, and Krishna Bhakti, being engaged in service under the guidance, Guru and Vaishnav, then gradually the layers of karma and gyan start thinning, diminishing, vanishing, and then the swarup starts appearing. So that when Guru Maharaj was on the Brajamandal Parikrama, and Saraswati Thakur said to him, "Which place do you like the best?" And he said, "Kadam Kandi," this place of Rupa Goswami. Guru Maharaj said he noted Saraswati Thakur was engaging what's called Ruchi Pariksha. He was examining the taste, the developing taste of the disciple. Ruchi Pariksha. So Guru Maharaj says, Mahabhagavata, Guru, they start detecting certain tendencies of the actual self, of the Swarup. When two devotees did not get along, I know this is going to be hard to conceive, but there were two devotees and they just couldn't appreciate one another. I know that sounds impossible, but they're both disciples of Saraswati Thakur. And Saraswati Thakur, he's aware that they're not appreciating they're appreciating him, but they're not appreciating one another. So in an open assembly, he calls upon the one, you say, Prabhu, yes, Prabhu, I would like you to say some praise for and praise of so-and-so, Prabhu. Well, he's really a dedicated servitor, and Guru Maharaj said he had to start. He said looking towards the Swarup, because maybe his non-Swarup was a jerk. Maybe it was some other type of form he was showing in terms of his non-spiritual self. So Guru Maharaj said they had to look beyond those. Someone might be a little arrogant, greedy, this, that, the other thing, and still be connected to a Guru and a Vaishnava. Someone else might be a perfect personality, but if they're not connected to the lotus feet of Guru, Gauranga, Radha, Govinda, it's all for naught. Nil, nada, zip, zero. What's the Russian word? Huh? Nichiwa? It sounds like what it is. Would be better to have a little chiwa. Nothing. You get nothing. Nyama in Polish. In Poland they say nyama. That's what harava bhaktasya kato mahadguna means. No matter how apparently developed and good qualities there are, if they have no appreciation for Sadhu Shastra Guru Vaishnav, then there's nothing there. We're talking about the 10 slokas of Narada to Vyas. This is one of them. What does he say? Tasyeva hetu prayate takovida nalabyate yad brahmatam uparyada. He says, what you should, people say, well, I'm wondering what I should do. Well, Narada says, I have an idea. Why don't you try for that thing that you can't get wandering the length and breadth of this universe that's available before you now in the form of connection with Sadhu Shastra Guru Vaishnava. That one, it's the most valuable things. Sangsaresman, Kanardopi, Satsanga, Sevadirinam. This is the most valuable treasure you can get in material existence. And you can't get it Brahmatamu Paryada, running through all these different species, different planets, everywhere. Not available. Don't have it. Bhaktya sanjatya bhaktya. But it's available in the association of the devotees. Right? That's what you should try for. And he's saying otherwise, whatever you get of the other stuff, it is not going to help you. Right? like I've mentioned the poem, Shelley's poem called Ozymandias, which is about one of the kings of ancient Egypt. Whether it's Ramses I, II, or III, or any one of them, doesn't matter. And in the poem, it's very simple. But a man, he's saying, I met a traveler from an ancient land, and he told me of this very peculiar, extraordinary occurrence that out in the middle of the desert, he said he saw a broken statue, right? Like from the waist here, it's just broken. The head lying in one place, this part in another, but then from here down, and the legs. And then there's an inscription upon the bottom, the base, and it says, I am Ozymandias, king of the world, look upon my kingdom. And he said, but you see, the head broke off, the arms broken, and the head, he said, lying in the sand, it's got this arrogant look. He said whoever sculpted it did a very good job of conveying the arrogance of this man. But when it says, look upon my kingdom, and he said, all you can see in all directions are the desert sand. There is no kingdom. Bhutva praliyate. Again, the world, the whole, what to speak of that kingdom? Everything appears, the whole universe appears, and then it vanishes, along with everything in it. Right? Like Prabhupada would talk about the cosmonaut who was like in space too long, and he kept asking him, where is Moscow? He wanted to look out, where is Moscow? No more Moscow, no more New York, Paris, London. Right? It appears and then it vanishes. So Guru Maharaj said, that self we want to connect to, we and should, it's living in eternity, saying try and take your stand in the faithful world, in the faithful plane. But that, mukti hridvanyata rupam swarupena vibhasiti, is an identity that's capable of growth and development. So the devotees, they think that they're not making progress. They don't think that they're enlightened. They think, they see all others are engaged in serving Krishna except themselves. They're lamenting. They feel as if they have got nothing. So when Krishna hid himself from the Braja Gopis, it plunged them in an ocean of separation. When you talk about, is it like a flash? So, like a flash before them, then vanishing. Right? So they were lamenting in different stages of divine madness. No. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur talks about unmad, which is divine madness. But he says, he talks about it in 3 stages. He said, when it's, I mean, he can do this. When divine madness is on a, beginning level, or it's not so intense, he says, then they're inquiring from the animation, everything, trying to find Krishna. So we hear, they're inquiring from the trees, the flowers, the deer. They're asking everyone, have you seen Krishna? And of course, they're not responding. And they interpret the silence of the trees, the flowers, and the deer to be some kind of a conspiracy. Like, oh, not going to talk. Right? So they're in this condition of divine. They're talking to a tree. Did the son of Yashoda pass by here? And of course, the tree is not saying anything. And they're thinking, oh, I see. told not to speak. Right. I get it. So you're not going to say anything. Just go, oh. Then they say, surely. They turn, you dear, you understand our situation. Oh, you're not speaking. Krishna must have paid them something, not to tell. He's saying that's in the beginning. In the intermediate stage, they start imitating Krishna's pastimes. One gopi is another one's Putana, one is Krishna, and they imitate the pastimes of Krishna. So, but in the deepest stage of that divine madness, they think that they've become Krishna. Right? And they'll say, I am Krishna. And they're chastising Kaliya or doing different things. So, but when Krishna reappears, one of their questions is, why did you do this to us? That we don't understand. You're supposed to be controlled by prema. We hear you favor your devotee. There's all these wonderful things said about you in terms of how you live and treat your devotee. Why do you do this? It's breaking our hearts. We're suicidal. All these things that they exhibit, and so they're asking Krishna, is it? And they they say there's some people who their idea of love and affection is, if you give me love and affection, I give you love and affection. So they're saying, is it something like that? Or there's another group who they give love and affection regardless of the response. And then there's another group, they don't like anybody. Some are just indifferent. What is it with you? Which case is that? And at one point, Krishna tells them, he said, I did this to increase your love and affection for me. It's also heartbreaking for me. But by making myself absent, as we know, the finest thing in the world is Krishna prema and love and affection for Krishna. If I hide myself from you and cast you into the fire of separation, your Krishna prema, your love and affection is going to be deeper and more joy producing. And then Vishwanath Chakrabarti, that's what he's telling to these highest, greatest devotees. But then Vishwanath Chakrabarti says something interesting about other level of devotees. He said there are other devotees, they're taking Krishna Nam. And they're feeling like they're getting nothing. He said Krishna is purposefully giving them nothing. For they're chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And Krishna is giving them nothing. So that they're going, I'm getting nothing. But in a similar way, Krishna is doing that. Then they have no other shelter than Krishna. Like Guru Maharaj said, a real devotee will think, I've given everything I could, I've tried for so long, for so many years, and still I have nothing to show. But I have no other shelter, I have no other interest, no other pursuit, no other goal. Guru Maharaj said, then it's just possible you might be a devotee. Even then, he wasn't going to say, you are. He said, then you could be. So Vishwanath is saying, Krishna is, in that sense, withholding himself from the neophytes to take them deeper into Krishna Nam, take them deeper into Krishna conception. And if this is how he's treating the most exalted devotees, then we can understand this is Krishna consciousness. We're not going to advertise it that way. Give everything here and get nothing. Like Norman said, he said, no risk, no gain, but a higher stage, all risk and no gain. Are you ready for that? And when I heard that, I thought maybe I didn't hear it right. He said, yes, you risk everything and get nothing. Are you ready for that, to do that? That's, Gopi Bhajan, Gopi Bhav. They'll risk everything for Krishna and Krishna's satisfaction, expecting nothing. Right? Napareham niravadya samyudam slok, where Krishna tells them, he says, actually, I can't reciprocate. I promised in Bhagavad Gita, yeyatamam prapadyante, as you surrender me, I reward accordingly, but with you it's not possible. You're too good. You're giving too, I don't have enough. If I gave everything I had, it wouldn't be enough to reciprocate what you're giving to me. And he said, and also, I didn't do the same thing you did. You gave up your family, friends, but I didn't. I didn't give up Yashoda, Nanda Yashoda, and Sridham and Subal and everybody. So he's telling the gopis, you're better than me. He said, so, it's the origin of let virtue be its own reward. He's saying, you're so glorious. Just what you've done, what you do, who you are, is its own reward. What you've become, who you've become, is everything. And therefore, they own Krishna. They own the copyright and trademark to Krishna. They can extend him, withdraw him. Radharani and the Braja Gopis own Krishna. And Vishwanath mentioned there, it's in one quoting different scriptures, saying you get different numbers, 3 billion gopis attend the Rasa Lila. Right? And of the 3 billion, he says 16,000 are very prominent. Krishna has 16 different types of energies, and they're personified as these inconceivably beautiful women with individual emotional characteristics, personalities, everything, that are all constructed from dedicating tendency, not bodies as the outcome of exploiting tendency, but forms that are eternally beautiful and becoming more and more beautiful with enriched, dedicating tendency. In the world of exploitation, you're beautiful for 15 minutes. Right? Therefore, the man says with utter sincerity, I will love you forever or until you reach 40. Right? So then it starts dwindling. You see every day on the internet, and they say, some famous, beautiful women from like 50 years ago. And then you go, wow, they were so beautiful. And they go, she's now 75. And as someone pointed out, it's so unfair. They expect this 75-year-old woman. They're saying, she doesn't look as good as she is. Well, she's beautiful inside now. It's cruel, but it's a fact. Beauty is but a flower, wrinkles will devour, brightness falls from the air, queens have died young and fair. So that's the beauty here. It's for a short time, right? The models are old when they're 24. They're going, she looked a lot better when she was 17. Now, 7 years later, and she's starting to lose. Brightness falls from the air, queens have died, young and fair. But in this plane, they're not just retaining their beauty, right? They're becoming more beautiful. that we can't properly conceive. But as Krishna is becoming more beautiful, and their beauty is a reflection of the beauty of Krishna, they become more beautiful, and there's a competition of beauty. So he says 3,016,000 prominent. Out of the 16,000, another 1,000. Out of the 1,000, then there's 8 who are most prominent. And of the 8, there's 2, Chandravali and Radharani. And then of the 2, Radharani is supreme. Right? So much so is something. Guru Maharaj mentioned one of these slokas of Rupa Goswami, where it says that once Radharani crying tears in separation, Nayambu Bandushu Kritam Saki Ahito. It said Guru Byorpita. The Guru Varga means Nanda, Yashoda, the elders of Vrindavan. They're becoming very worried because at this particular time her separation is so great, the stream of tears is not stopping. It's endless. And it looks like she's going to leave the world. So Guru Maharaj says that Chandravali came to Radharani and gave her dandavats and bowed to her lotus feet and said, and begged her not to end her life, and said, because without you, we have no hope of getting Krishna. I admit it. You're the best. Even Chandravali is thinking, without Radharani, if we have Radharani, we know Krishna will come back. With her, we know we've got Krishna. If we lose her, then what reason does Krishna have to return? So even her greatest competitor is acknowledging her superior position. Devi, Mai Prokta, Radhika, Sarvatadika, Mahabhava Swarupayam, Gunai, Ati Varishyasi. So superiorly qualified. And then in that sloka, Achchenam Nayanam Bubandushu Kritam Saki Rahito, says that suddenly she stops crying. And he said all of her tears have been transferred to her attendants, all the others. Now they're all crying, and she stopped crying. So somehow the sincere followers, they will take up that position. So what is the self and what is the self's potential? Guru Maharaj says, reality is a thing plus itself, plus its potential. He would sometimes say, this is what we learned from Einstein and his theories, that reality is a thing plus its potential. So when we talk about the self, it means when its potential is activated. Krishnera Nityadas, eternal servitude of Krishna. And it means when service to Krishna has been activated, the servitor identity. They become aware of serving potential. So it's sometimes Srila Guru Maharaj would say, when it's mentioned, the ocean of joy, like Sindhu, and what is the word? Brahmananda Bhavedesha Chet Paradha Guni Krita Naiti Bhakti Sukham Bodhe Paramanu Tulamapi. Talking about the ecstatic ocean. Guru Maharaj would say, the ocean of ecstasy is not a static ocean, but a dynamic ocean. So that's a sloka of Rupa Goswami where he says, Brahmananda, that's one level of, you could say, self-identity. Right? The Brahmanandis, they're on account of relishing spiritual pleasure, the greatest mundane pleasure is insignificant to them. They have no interest in that. It's millions of times greater than that. But here in this sloka, Rupa Goswami says, Brahmanando Bhavedesha Chet Parata Guni Krita Naiti Bhakti Surkam Bodhe Paramanu Tulamapi. But the pleasure, the joy of Krishna consciousness is millions and trillions of times greater than Brahmananda. In fact, Brahmananda is not equivalent, multiplied 1 trillion times, isn't equivalent to an atomic drop of the joy of Krishna consciousness. So that's Atmaram level of identity. We can't, sometimes Guru Maharaj would say, our future is so bright, we can't even properly conceive of the joy of that domain, the divine abode of Krishna. So when Mahaprabhu told Rupa Goswami, the Rupa Shiksha, saying, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, saying, I will take Ek Bindu, one drop from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, I'll take one drop from there and explain that to you. Because it's an infinite ocean of ecstatic joy. Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipatam Purnam Rita Shvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Hare Krishna. Well, what could be more perfect than that? Hare Krishna.